Welcome to So Seriously. I'm Heather.
And I'm Carrie, your self-proclaimed experts of everything in the middle. So seriously, what do we think about summer jobs for kids? What are our expectations?
Well, I guess it depends on the age of your kid. Since we are middle-aged, our kids are a little older.
Yeah.
And so summer jobs is kind of a necessity to help pay for college. So they have money for school, and they have spending money for gas and all the things that I'm not going to pay for.
Right.
Ho, hi ho, it's home to work we go. Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho.
As they're in our older kids, so I still have one that's a little bit younger. But our older kids, they're definitely in that period of their life where they have to be accountable and responsible for their own expenses.
Yeah.
But when does that start? So how old were you when you had your first job?
Gosh. I mean, other than babysitting, but probably about the same. Fifth grade, I went to a farm that we bought goat's milk from, and I got paid $20 a day, and I was paid to help pick up manure. I turned out to be really bad at it. The goats would taunt me and push over my wheelbarrow, and so I wasn't good at it. So instead, I would go help pet, clean cats and things like that.
Yeah.
But so fifth grade. 11 or 12.
Yeah. And in the Midwest where I grew up, you couldn't have a job until you were 14. Like you said, other than babysitting, my first real job wasn't until, actually I was 13 and I was hired to be a crossing guard because in our hometown, you had to cross a highway to get to the public pool. And so
a highway.
Right. So it was at the time it was 2 lanes, so one way each direction. Now it's 4 lanes, so there's 2 lanes going both directions.
You might need 2 12-year-olds for 13-year-olds for that.
Well, they did even back then. But so I was hired and I worked for a month, and then they realized that they hadn't asked me for my birth certificate when they hired me. So I had to bring that in, and then they were like, "Oh, wait, you're not old enough for us to legally be."
Oh, because how old?
Because you had to be 14 and I was 13. So they obviously had to say, come back next summer. Yeah. And so then the next summer I went back.
Some other lucky 14-year-old.
Yes, got the job, yeah. But I also did start babysitting, at a really young age, probably 11 or so.
Which you think about now that people left their kids with us, and we were basically kids ourselves.
Right.
But, would you do that? I mean, maybe.
I did actually, because I remember when my kids were little, I always thought to myself, well, when I was 11, I was babysitting other kids. So I did start leaving my kids home alone when the oldest was probably younger than I should have.
And I was like, my precious babies. And so I would only hire college students.
Yeah.
So that was a little harder to get.
Yeah.
Never thinking, wait a minute, I stayed home at this age.
Right.
But apparently I thought my kids were special.
They are.
In
all
so
the
many
kids
ways.
So then with our kids, once my kids, I think our older boys, if I remember right, the first time they detasseled, they were both 13 or were they 14?
Okay, well, first we should probably tell people what detasseling is, because before I moved to Nebraska, thing. I had no idea.
Okay.
But it's, you drop your kids off in a parking lot.
Yes. And at 4:30 in the morning.
Yep. And this becomes a bigger job for the parent than it is for the kids.
Because it's every day.
Every day.
Every Sunday through Saturday.
And they go dressed head to toe, covered in every part of their skin. And then they go in the cornfield and separate.
And they pull
I don't understand it.
They pull the tassel off the top of the corn. I should understand this, but even being from the Midwest, I never did it myself.
Apparently there's male corn and
female, and they don't want cross-pollination of the corn, so they have to take the tassel off when the corn is a certain height to prevent that cross-pollination, is my best understanding.
And you drop them off at, like you said, 4:30 in the morning, and they come home 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock at night. and then they have to, like, come home, they sleep, you have to quick wash all their stuff.
Right.
And then they start the next day. And like you said, no days off.
Right. And it goes in the summer, and it's usually about a 3-week stint.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really rough 3 weeks. But
We must sacrifice them both tonight.
it is so character building.
Yes.
And it is one of the best things that young kids can put on their resumes here in the Midwest. If you can show up for your next job and say you detasseled, most companies will say you're hired because they know of the work ethic.
Especially if you did it more than 1 year.
Right.
Like, I think John did it 3 years in a row. And, like, so he was like not a manager, but
a crew lead
or something. And that's huge that he kept going back and doing it. So, yeah.
And they definitely reward those. Like, every year you come back, it's like you get $1 more an hour. And
So my kids will tell you one of my pet peeves is lazy. And there is nothing lazy about doing that job.
Right.
It's a hard job. Like, there's times, like, I pitied them.
Yeah.
It's a hard job.
Did your daughter do it?
My daughter did it.
I thought so.
She was in a lot of other activities, so it didn't really work with her summer schedule.
Yeah.
She didn't get to do it as much, and her brother and his friends were the team leads, so it was maybe a little hellish for her.
Yeah.
But she did try one summer.
Yeah.
So.
And I thought that was the case. So my daughter being the same age as your daughter, there's also a height requirement. And my daughter's small, very petite, so she never met the height requirement. So she couldn't.
She was so disappointed.
Yeah, and she was, very sad about that. But
I bet my daughter wishes she didn't make the height requirement.
So we highly encouraged our kids as soon as they could to get a job.
Yes.
So Jillian couldn't get a job detasseling because of the height requirement, but she did get a different job. She went out there and she was very into dance. And so she went to the local dance store and got her first job at the dance shop the local dance shop, and worked there for almost 3 years.
I would say for a while there, I felt like once she was even old enough, then she had 2 jobs at a time. She always felt like she always had 2 jobs.
2 jobs, yeah.
Which is, now that's a little insane.
Yeah. Well, and Sammy, too, because he detasseled and worked at Culver's the second summer when he was old enough to be...
Yeah. Yeah, and I think John eventually, once their detasseling company stopped and he didn't want to go to a new one, he did fast food as well.
Yeah.
Which, I think both our boys, I don't think they ever want to do that again.
No, I don't
it was
think
like
they'll
a
ever
rite of
do
passage.
Sounds like a...
It is. I just like detasseling. I think fast food restaurants are a rite of passage for kids that are getting their first jobs as well.
My daughter did not do. Did your daughter do?
She did not do fast food either.
It's a rite of passage for our son.
And my youngest son Teddy is also having to go through. He didn't detassel, but he did roguing last summer, which is the counterpart to.
Is that the male female?
No, roguing is with beans.
Like soybeans.
I don't know, honestly. Probably.
I feel like soybeans are in the pastures. No, pastures
in
are for cows.
Yeah, pastures are in the fields. There's soybeans. There's a lot of.
I'm not from Nebraska.
Well, I am, and I still don't know, so it's okay. But so Teddy did the roguing last summer, and then he also did the rite of passage of working at a fast food restaurant also.
Yeah, Hannah did not work fast food, but she worked at Menards, which is another thing out here in the Midwest. It's so for people not in the Midwest, something I did not know either. It is like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, but you save big money at Menards.
Save big money at Menards. Yes.
So she was a cashier there, and then she moved on to Michael's,
which is a crafts store.
Yeah, I feel like that one's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coupons.
But so I think that what we both really have tried to instill in our kids is that you should get a job as soon as you can. And it's not because we're not able to provide for you, but it's for you to start learning how to provide for the things that you want.
Yeah. And even for school, we've always just kind of said that we want them to have a little skin in the game. And so that way they have to be responsible for some of it because you work a little bit harder when you're paying for a little bit of it.
Yeah, when you know that you're...
So that's one of the things that we do is we make our kids pay for some school. And they get to figure out how they're going to do it.
Yeah. And we've always made our kids pay for like their own gas once they got a car. And, you know, if they're going out to eat with friends or clothes, you know, it's hard to keep up with the styles that they want. And so really that was one of the reasons why we've always said, no, you know, go get a job. If you want this and you want that, you need to understand that it's more than just a want. Like if you want it that badly, you need to work.
I will say, a lot of people will say my son is a little bit thrifty, and it's probably because he doesn't want to spend his own money. So he will hold off forever on buying things. So I'm going to use the word thrifty.
Thrifty, yes, I like it.
He's not thrifty with my money. But
Oh,
he's
they
thrifty
never
with
are.
his money. So.
Right. I think that's a common thread.
Yeah. So seriously, where do we stand on the appropriateness or appropriate expectations for our kids and summer jobs or just part-time jobs?
Well, I know for me personally that I think it is up to each family and your dynamics. And it's up to the circumstances as well. So we've been blessed to have circumstances where working is optional. But there are times where it's like your schedule just doesn't permit. And sometimes it's my schedule that doesn't permit before the kids can drive that, you know, if you're in charge of the to and from, sometimes it's my schedule that doesn't permit.
If you don't want to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to drive them to do tasseling, yes.
But I think that my stance has just been that as soon as they can, they should get something to do as part of a job.
Yeah. And I also think, I agree, and my kids have had jobs, and then sometimes they just can't get a job.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but then they can pick up things around the house or run errands for me when they're older.
Yes.
Or, you know, help with a few more of the home chores.
Right.
My daughter's great about running errands for me.
Yes.
And that helps me.
I think that's a really good call out, and I'm glad.
I think we can both say that to us, it's a rite of passage, and it is an expectation.
Yep, I think so too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Here is our gift to you.
Did I jump in that without a pause?
No, that was good.
That was good.
Damn!
We did it, girlfriend!
Did you just see that bird hit the window?
I did. Do you think that's going to be on the sound?
And I don't even know if it's still alive.
I think it's probably on the deck.
Our friend Kelly would not find that.
Oh, yeah, that would maybe.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I'm sure Kelly's fine.
Yeah.
Kelly, it's fine.
No, it's.
The bird is fine.
Oh, I see it. It just flew.
Fly away, little bird, fly.
And it has a worm in its mouth. It's happy and. Okay.